Welcome, everyone. I'm Vani Krishnamurthy, the founder and executive director of Arts India US. And you all are here for our very first social media workshop, telling your authentic story as an Indian classical performing artist. I'm happy to see that we have a range of arts interests and geographies being represented in this group from the survey that you all filled out. As some of you know, Arts India US aims to inspire, support, and advocate for US-based emerging performing artists and advanced practitioners of Indian classical genres so that they have the freedom and opportunity to continue their education and showcase their art forms within and beyond the Indian diaspora. So when I researched this landscape and began to form this initiative just a year ago, I realized that there were so many people secretly harboring the vision that we are trying to amplify, which is that we hope to elevate the presence and the perception of Indian classical performing arts in the United States. While we're very young, we have quickly managed to gain a lot of enthusiasm and interest of so much of the Indian classical performing arts community. A number of organizations and people have pledged their support to us, and we have a variety of programming that will be kicked off at various points of the year, all of which you can read about on our website, which is ArtsIndiaUS.org, that's shown on the screen here, and referred to on our Instagram. So speaking of which, I'll pause here to ask you to do us and hopefully yourselves a favor by following us on Instagram. If you have not already, our handle is ArtsIndiaUS, pretty simple. You'll see that we share profiles of emerging artists, some of you actually, as well as more seasoned artists who wish to share their knowledge of the space, grant and performance opportunities, and overall, we're just trying to create a community across the nation of people like you. We're very open to feedback, suggestions, just conversation so that we are doing what is needed. We are not in the business of just trying to create an initiative just to say that we did. We want to create some sort of impact and move this community forward in a way that it's never been moved before. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce our presenter tonight, Sree Sreenivasan. So I met Sree over 20 years ago, and I'm one of many individuals who is amazed at how applicable his unique expertise, which touches so many aspects of technology and communication, is to every industry and topic, including the arts. Sree is, a, basically wonderful for offering to do this workshop for us. He knows that we're a very young organization and wanted to help out, and he's passionate about the arts himself. I actually last weekend saw him at a Carnatic concert in a friend's home. So I think he's got a lot invested into this group and these art forms himself. So we're very thankful for his time and effort. I'll make his intro short, only to be selfish, that we get more of his time in this workshop. He's one of those people you could go on and on and on about because he's done so
Please
many
don't.
interesting things. Sree is currently CEO and co-founder of Digimentors, which is a social, digital, and AI training and consulting company. He has served as Chief Digital Officer of New York City, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Columbia University, where he was also a full-time professor of journalism for over 20 years. Again, there's so much more, but I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Sree.
Thank you, Vani. Before you turn off your camera or duck out, I wanted to just say, because I don't think you know how much Bharatanatyam has been part of my life. It's my earliest memories is watching my mom practice her dance in our home in Moscow when I was very young. My dad was an Indian diplomat, and that's my beautiful mom. And this is her, one of her many Bharatanatyam performances, as you can see here. And this is the book that she wrote on WhatsApp. 95% of it she finished before she passed last year at just the age of 73, so young. And it'll be her 75th birthday on Mahatma Gandhi's birthday this year on October 2nd. And so I dedicated this session to her, and I wish you the very best with Arts India US. What you're doing is so important. And in addition to that, my daughter had her Arangetram Indian American born Indian American girl with her brother as the MC, her twin brother as the MC at the height of the pandemic. Just as it was, that's when she was preparing, but just as it was ending, she had her Arangetram. There were could only fit 75 people at the Rubin Museum of Art's first event after the pandemic, and it was a beautiful evening and 12 years of hard work. You've done this. So many people have done versions of that. If we have friends here who are not from the especially the South Indian art world, Arangetram's the uh, I mean, the major recital that's kind of a graduation of sorts. And then I'll show you my own experience because if you have a dance teacher for a mom, you know what happens is you get roped in. So that's, let's see if we can show this to you properly because there's a,
Yeah.
okay, there we go. You can see me. That's me as Krishna
Oh,
in
wow.
on my first appearance on television. I'd gone to have a television career many years later, but that's me in 1975 in Moscow with a bunch of Russian girls, my mom's students, for a Dandiya Ras performance of as Krishna, and that's what's going on there. There was one Sri Lankan girl you can see behind us. So we're the two brown people in this, and that was me at about around age 5
That
uh,
is amazing.
on Russian TV for the first time. So
Well, I didn't know that there was this much background with all of this. So,
yeah, and finally, my mom was also a painter, and you can see behind that's a painting she made
yes.
of Dal Lake in Kashmir. And so I am just thrilled and so happy to know you're building this community, and this is my tiny, tiny contribution to what you're doing, and just so happy for you and for your entire team. So we'll see you towards the end. You'll come back in, and you are going to be in the chat actively moderating, encouraging people to post questions. We want everyone to introduce themselves. This is being recorded and will be available later, but it'll be nice to get a flavor of who's there. So tell us your name, your affiliation, your art form, and we'll just, I think it's because you are, there you go. I was able to get that done. So thank you everybody for coming. Tell us also the city you're watching from, please. And if you're just watching this recording on YouTube, welcome as well. And would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on this very important issue of the arts and creativity and social media and digital. All of this is changing. And what I'm going to do is use some slides as a way to get our conversation started. But this is really about the work that we're all doing and how we can maximize the opportunity for everyone to really thrive in the digital space. So my name is Sree Sreenivasan. I got an incredibly generous introduction from Vani, who I've been a fan of for 20 years. And those of you who know her know why we are fans of hers. I've I'm going to be using my slides from a conversation around digital storytelling because in the end, everything is storytelling, and the art forms you perform are storytelling, as well as the work that you're doing to reach out to people, not just in where they're experiencing your art, but also everywhere else that this is being sent and shared and produced. I have a QR code. If you want to grab this, you can. There's also a bit.ly link. Those are two things every artist should know how to do. You know how to consume a QR code, but also creating a QR code. You should have a strategy on and knowledge base on doing that. You should also have a bit.ly link or a tiny URL link so you can track clicks and things like that. The the reason people like my mom became artists was because they didn't want to be involved in all the mundane, boring technical and business sides of things. But today, to be a successful artist, you need to have some of those other skills as well. And so I'll touch upon them as we go through this. And you can see my socials on my screen, as well as my newsletter, which I'd love for you to sign up for. It's on Substack. And also I have a Facebook group that you can join. It's called Sree's Advanced Social. So you just type that into Facebook and you'll find it. And then I have all my best tips on one page here. When we're done, we will send everybody a AI summary of this presentation, as well as the links and the presentation itself. This is a living document that I keep changing. Whenever I teach, I start with ABC, always be charging, always be connecting, and always be collecting. Always be charging what is about charging your devices. If you're going to be performing in whatever field, you want to have a lot of different ways to capture what you're doing. So I always have extra battery packs with me. Today I went out and bought two of the new Apple for the iPhone. These are not new. This one is new. You can see how much thicker this is. But uh, these Apple cases that have battery packs in there, so they're not cases, but they attach to the case. So I like that. Obviously, Android, anything like that. Always be connecting is about making sure you're connecting with colleagues and friends using social media, and that's one of the reasons we want you to introduce yourselves. Stick your IG in there, stick your LinkedIn in the chat as well, and I'm sure you'll connect with more people. And then always be collecting is about the importance of collecting images, video, everywhere you go. Go out and do it. Do what I like. I call it have a sense of joyful entitlement in everything you're doing, and just capture video, practice doing that so that it can be useful for you when you're doing it for yourself as well. Let me tell you a little bit about my company, Digimentors. You heard already that I used to work as the Chief Digital Officer of New York City, the Met, Columbia. All of that work has funneled into this project for the last 8 years. This company, we do digital marketing, PR. We help with live streams. We do production. We do everything that is about raising your digital footprint. We do training and workshops like this, and our new AI workshops around the idea of what I call my non-scary guide to AI. And maybe one day, Vani, in a year or so, we can do the artist's thoughts or the artist guide to AI and how you can use it. AI policy, all of this stuff we do as well. And our website is digimentors.group, and hope you will check us out. If you know anyone who would like to increase their digital footprint, hope you will connect us with them, and hope you will check us out and give us feedback. If we were in a physical space, I would ask you for a way to connect. And one way to do that is, of course, through business cards. But who has business cards anymore? I do, but I also have a Blink card, BLINQ. I hope you have something like this that you walk around with so you can show it to folks and they can connect with you that way. On blink.me, you can connect with me on a whole bunch of different platforms, so do check those out. One of my former students said this on an email. He said, "We do some jobs for money and some for the honor and pleasure, honor and privilege of doing the work. If we get to do both, we're lucky." I love that so much that I put it on the back of my business card at the Met. You can see the Met behind you. I know you folks feel that way as artists. Most of you are not yet able to do it full time, trying to do these Indian classical arts full time. Some of you are able to do it, but those of you who either way, you know this idea that if we can do both, we're really lucky. And those of you who get to do it are obviously able to do that in important ways. And I wish you the very best as you're doing this. And this is my IG, so I hope you'll connect there. I also have, as I mentioned, my Facebook group, which I encourage you to join as well. When I was at the Met, people would ask me all the time, "Sree, how come you don't have QR codes next to every painting?" And I would say, I hate QR codes. Americans don't use them anyway. But you know that all changed with the pandemic and menus. And now you can see I have so many QR codes. And you probably know most of these. On the upper left is LinkedIn, Instagram. Actually, Vani, I'm going to have you turn on your mic and put you on the spot. Let's see you go clockwise and tell me all of them.
Oh
So
God. Okay.
so LinkedIn, I gave you next.
Yes. That's
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yep, go
Yeah.
ahead.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I do not know what that is. What is?
Snapchat.
Oh, that's Snap. That's why I don't know what that is.
Okay.
That's Facebook Messenger,
Perfect.
Venmo, PayPal.
This
What
is
is that?
Twitter.
Oh, that's Twitter. Okay. TikTok.
And this left one, you wouldn't know it necessarily.
Yeah.
It's called WeChat, and it's the biggest
Okay.
channel in China. And
Right.
it's like an everything app. It's what Elon Musk wants Twitter to be, and that's why
Okay.
he's so jealous, and that's why he's ruining Twitter by making it X and all this stuff. He's adding dating and finance into X. What could go wrong? Everything. And what's also important here for everybody to know is that I also have my email address, Vani. As you know, we didn't Snapchat each other to be invited to this or to organize it. We used email and WhatsApp and all of these other tools. but email matters. In a TikTok world, email matters. So you're off the hook. You did very well. Thank you. And I'm just throwing my LinkedIn here one more time in case somebody wants to grab it. You're welcome to grab and connect with me on LinkedIn. Obviously, you can find me even if you aren't using your QR code. And I just want to give you a sense of all the changes taking place in the social media landscape. We're on Instagram, we got more privacy has been turned on for teen accounts, up to 20 images in carousels. It's 10, it's going to 20. They've banned RT and other Russian media on Facebook. They've added multiple generative AI features on Facebook. On Twitter, only 4% of marketers believe the platform is brand safe. 4%. Almost no access to analytics, and it's been banned in Brazil. That may change or has changed very recently, even since I made this slide. Here are some of the other things that have happened. There's been a quiet confidence on the part of TikTok about the ban that even if it gets banned in the US, it will still survive because of legal issues and legal challenges and things like that. Public support for the ban has fallen from 50% to 32%, and Congress will certainly pay attention to that. They have a new delete and re-edit option for uploaded clips. If you're on TikTok, you know that's pretty cool. LinkedIn has these new in-feed video carousels. On Threads, they have DMs via IG, and it continues to rise in download rankings. It's now 6th in the world. And on Snapchat, they reserve the right to use your likeness in ads. How ridiculous is that? So you see, just wanted to show you some recent headlines about social media. This is why it's so hard to keep up with that and try to understand all the things you need to. Next year, there are some 7 new emoji coming. By the way, that's a typo because the spelling of the plural of emoji is emoji. So as a journalist, I hate that typo. So I'm going to remove that in real time in front of all of you. So the plural of emoji is emoji. And there are 7 of them coming. Face with bags under the eyes, fingerprint, splatter, root vegetable, leafless tree, harp, and shovel. And we looked at this together with some colleagues the other day, Vani, and somebody said this is the most depressing set of emoji they could have come up with. Why these 7? So I can't answer why these 7, and some of these certainly have to do with death in various ways or being unwell. So God knows. But these are the new emoji coming to your phone. Good news is there is already a sari emoji, which I was very excited to discover some couple of years ago. I don't know if what else is there. Indian, there is a Bitmoji, which you will know is a fun tool for creating your own avatar and using it. And they have a samosa and a dosa Bitmoji, so I'm happy about that. Vani was very kind to say all these nice things about me, but I want to tell you that life happens, that nothing in your journeys as you're going through to build your career in the arts is going to be automatic or guaranteed. As you can see here, I was ousted from my job at the Met on the same day they let go the chief digital officer, chief marketing officer, and chief design officer. We arrived at the same time, and we were let go because even though they had a $3 billion endowment, they're having financial difficulties. So, whenever you think you're working for a small organization, you don't have money, even the biggest organizations can feel like they don't have money. So it's all kind of relative. And after the story got written, I went on Facebook and gave people a Google form and said, tell me what to do next. And more than 1,000 people filled in the form with some good ideas, some awful, terrible ideas, wonderful ideas. And so at the worst moment of my life, I got a global digital hug, and it was absolutely wonderful. And the PBS NewsHour did an 8-minute segment on me. More than 50 articles were written about me. And that QR code you see there is for an epic thread about careers, job hunting, all of that I put together that has had more than 1 million impressions. So you can catch that if you like. Everything in my presentation is clickable, so you can read the things that you want to later when you have time. And again, we'll send you the URL again for the presentation. So I have this thing I call the theory of the 2 footprints. We have the physical footprint and the digital footprint. And by the way, when I see these footprints, it reminds me of my mom's dancing, my daughter's dancing, because Bharatanatyam especially is so much about the feet. And so I think about that. And we have two footprints. The physical footprint is everyone who knows us, loves us, hires us, gives us work, buys tickets, promotes us, etc. Right? We know those people. The digital footprint is everybody else in the universe. So how do we increase that digital footprint? Why do you need to increase it? Why can't I just stick to the people who know and love me? Because if you don't increase your digital footprint, you're leaving money, opportunities, dollars, influence, impact on the table. And so you want to increase your digital footprint. And this is the work of my life ever since I started the company. But this is really what I've been doing for years. I've worked with just authors, getting them to build websites by hand. I built the websites of Fareed Zakaria and Shashi Tharoor and Amitav Ghosh, who they didn't want websites. But I understood that the arts folks need websites, need these digital tools. So that's how I think about it. So I'm going to give you 11 ways to master storytelling. A lot of it is around social, some of it is not, but it's all part of where we're going. So the first is always be learning. And during the pandemic, I learned Canva, YouTube creating on YouTube, not just watching YouTube, Substack, and StreamYard. StreamYard's a live streaming platform. All of these had huge impact on our work and what we were able to do at Digimentors. It changed the trajectory of my life, learning these tools, trying to catch up with the 18, the 25-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. I'm 54, so I have a lot of learning to do. Second, know and conquer the scarcest resource. By the way, I know you're asking questions throughout the session. I'll come to Vani at some point and she will ask questions. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague Tara Ruff, who's watching. She's helping coordinate behind the scenes as well, Tara, and I'm sure you've introduced yourself already in the chat. So what is the scarcest resource? That's the scarcest resource. Human attention. Getting it, growing it, keeping it is my life's work, and I want it to be part of your portfolio of things you're trying to do. How do you increase that attention? And I gave a TEDx TEDx Broadway talk on this to think about how Broadway gets more attention. And so I would encourage you to watch that video when you get a chance. Now, when I was young, I wanted to be a millionaire, and I want to tell you that I did become a millionaire, as you can see, but it wasn't in money, it was in unread Gmail messages. And I'm showing you this not because I'm so important or anything like that, but just to tell you how hard it is to get people's attention. Everyone's so busy with so many things. Vani, if I can have you come back, I would ask you, what is the sadder number on the screen?
Probably the drafts that you
Yeah,
didn't
the
send.
drafts. So just think about all the people that I asked, who I started to respond to and I didn't send messages to. But Vani's message came through. Why? I mean, that's also interesting, right? Like Vani sends me a message, I replied to her, and here we are. We're doing this, right? So it's about getting that attention, cutting through and doing that. Some of you looking at this, maybe Vani herself, are probably having mild heart attacks or elevated blood pressure because you hate to see numbers like this, right? You're folks who uh, go to inbox zero as much as possible. Vani, are you an inbox zero person?
I'm not an inbox zero person, but I'm kind of like a I have guilt associated with my inbox at like all the time. So it's kind of the worst of the bunch. Like I don't like where I am with the inbox.
I hear you. I totally get that. So again, this is not to say anything about me, but to say about the people you're trying to reach. This is some people have reality. Vani may have a couple of thousand or a couple of hundred unopened messages. I may have a million. The people you're reaching are somewhere in that spectrum, right? And that's part of life. Well, I'm going to tell you now the dirty secret of social media. Almost everyone will miss almost everything you do on social media. And if you look at the bottom, until you make a mistake, then everybody will see it. So the importance of really paying attention and understanding how social media works is key. Here, I'll tell you, social media is hard. Here, I did a post and I got 185,000 impressions, which is an enormous number for someone like me. I was very proud of it. So I was like, I'm going to get so many new followers. I'm going to do so great. This is going to be fantastic. I got a grand total of 1 new follower. And this is something I learned of having watched Seinfeld, for those of you old enough to, or find Seinfeld on Netflix, that like everybody tries to get just to say, okay, if I can just get in front of a big crowd, people will follow me, people will buy me, people will love me. It's just not true. There's a Seinfeld episode about a puffy shirt that the designer wants him to wear on the Today Show. The idea that if you can just get on the Today Show, you'll sell out and everything will be fine. And as somebody who's been on the Today Show 40 times, been on New York television for for 10 years on Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7 as a on-air journalist, I can tell you that most people aren't watching. Most people don't care. I had enough trouble getting people in my own house to watch when I was on the news. There was a time when I would be on sometimes at the 11 p.m. news, and my wife would rather watch Jon Stewart. And so, how are you going to reach everybody? Just this idea that you can just go out there and just get this one home run or one grand slam, you're going to be set. Unfortunately, that's not how attention works. You get attention by singles, if I can use that baseball metaphor, that singles, bunts, lots of little work that builds on top of each other over time. That's how you build and get that attention. You don't do it by just getting one huge article. If you get it, great, but that doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. Here's a day when I did really well on social media. I got 225 new followers. So it's like, great, I'm just going to use the same technology. I mean, same information I'm going to post. I'm going to be successful. I cracked the formula. Well, that day I lost 158 people with the same content, right? This exact same content. So that tells you how hard this stuff is and how difficult it is. So let's think of those other ways in which we can master our storytelling because it's so important. Now, in the magazine world, being being clever is really important. So if you read magazines, the old-fashioned media, here are two basically the same idea, the passion of Kanye, the passion of Muhammad Ali, and just over multiple decades, the same cover. It's pretty clever and it's done like that. But in the digital world, clear is the new clever. So clarity above everything else you do when you're communicating, from your subject lines in your email to your TikTok videos to your website. As clear as you can be, you will be more successful in what you're doing. Number 4, tell a story. And by the way, after about 5 or 6, I'll pause and just take a couple of quick questions. Tell a story. And there's a wonderful book by Priya Parker that I recommend to everyone. It's called The Art of Gathering, well, how we meet and why it matters. And it just shows you why it's important for us to get together and be together in reality. This was written before the pandemic. And she says in that, tell a story, start with a story. You saw that I didn't start with a story, right? I had like a whole bunch of slides that were just like logistics, and you'd never want to start with logistics. You want to start with a story. And so that's why she's a better storyteller than I am. Always start with a story. You get right to it. Here's a tip from the world of TikTok. Don't start a TikTok that says, hi, I'm Sree Sreenivasan. I'm going to show you how to do this mudra in Bharatanatyam, right? Don't start it that way. You start with this mudra means this or something like that. Start with that and say, hi, I'm Sree Sreenivasan. I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer, blah, blah, blah. Just that instant grabbing people as clearly and as fast as you can is part of what you need to do to be successful in the digital world. Do less throat clearing, which is what I was doing, right? All this stuff, sign up for this, do that, look at my email, da, da, da. No, this just get to a story and you'll be successful. So I'm going to tell you a story. This is from the fall of 1981. A young man was coming to Columbia University, where I had a 20-year plus life. And in 1981, I wasn't there yet. I was 11 years old, but I was in New York, and New York was a very dangerous place at the time. And he was assigned a new roommate at Columbia. So he was coming to Columbia. So he came and he knocked on the roommate's door. Nobody opened or his own apartment to be. Knock, knock, knock. Didn't open, didn't show up. Nobody came. And he was getting more and more frustrated. And what he did was he went to the back into the alley, found lay on top of his suitcase and looked up at the sky and kind of imagined what his life was and where he was in the world. And that man, in less than 30 years from that day, became president of the United States. Yes, that's Barack Hussein Obama's first night in New York. That's how he spent his first night. And Bonnie, if you can come back, I'll just ask you, have you heard of that story before?
I actually have not heard of that. I read his biography too, and I don't remember that
It's
story.
there, but there are so many stories in because I've
Yeah.
explored this with people who are huge Obama fans. How come you don't remember the story? Because there are like 1,000 other stories in that book. And but it also tells you that this should be a story we all know, but we don't because there's just so much out there. But imagine being a neighbor of his and seeing somebody knocking on the door in 1981, are you gonna be like, oh my God, you're the future president, come hang out with me, here's a couch, eat my lunch, right? No, you're not going to do any of that. Probably call the cops or something. So I make a comparison. I tell you this because it's obviously a great story, and maybe you'll tell it at a cocktail party. But also, I tell you the story because it's about social media in a way that in social media, we judge people all the time. You have 500 followers, you're worth this much. You have 1,000, you're worth the double. If you have 10,000, you're worth 10 times that other person, right? Like all this ridiculous stuff. I call the follower count the original sin of social media. If they didn't have that, we wouldn't have lot of the hassles we have with social media today. So instead, I tell people don't judge people by their followers. Instead, see how they're using it, what are their connections, etc. So just something to keep in mind as you're going out there and building your social media. And I love that there's a lot of commentary, questions, comments coming in, and I'm going to come to Vani in just a moment. She's going to pick out a couple. I'm not looking at the comments directly myself. I just see the hit counter going up. So Vani and Tara are going to come up with a couple of questions to ask. Um, the importance of visuals. That story about Obama is great without a visual, but with a visual, you will never forget it, right? You saw that. I could have told you I was on Russian TV when I was 5 years old, or I could show you I was on Russian TV when I was 5 years old. So whenever you're doing anything online, post an image, post a photograph, post a GIF, and that will really make a difference. So I coined the term thumb stopper, and here you can see that this is one of my good friends who you should follow on Instagram, Mitra Kalida. She used to run everything at CNN that was not the on-air part, and now she runs an incredible organization called URL Media. And use these tools, Pic Collage, Canva, learn to use them or have someone on your team learn them because they're so good. Here's a Typorama app that allows me to build something like this really fast. You can do these on the phone. This is my wife, Rupa. You can follow her at Rupa Online on Instagram. And here is whenever she'll say something, she'll say, Sree, please don't tweet it. And I'll say it's too late. So here she wrote something. She said something about Italy. She said she loves the Renaissance gelato and the wine. And so I tweeted that. And then one of the things that I've learned is you can reuse your content. There's nothing saying you can only post something once. I then took the same image and then posted it several days or weeks later. And I said, at least she didn't say the men. So you can have some fun with social media. You can have personality with social media. It makes a difference in what you're doing. Here are some other tools to use for making thumb stoppers. Again, you're going to get the presentation, so you'll have all of these. And if you want to take a screenshot, here are my favorite image editing tools that you can see. You can see Canva, Snapseed, which is from Google. So many cool things in there. And PhotoScan, by the way, is a Google app for scanning old photographs. So if you have a collection of printed pictures from your parents or grandparents, using PhotoScan is a much better way of improving how people see your photos. So let me pause there. There's a whole bunch of other things in here. And Vani, let's get some questions going.
Yeah, I think let's start with this one because I think there's a few around the same topic,
Yeah,
which is knowing how to gauge quality versus quantity with followers on social media.
yeah, that's a huge question.
Genuine versus superficial fan base, essentially.
Yeah. I have a slide about that coming up where I say it's great to have thousands of followers, but I would rather have hundreds of dedicated followers. So one thing is on IG, I have some 20 something thousand followers, and th those followers are more genuine than they are on Twitter. On Twitter, I have 80 something thousand. I would easily give up tens of thousands of followers to have more influential people following me rather than just, it's good to have everyday people following you, but influential or expert followers are more important to me in what I'm doing. And my work is really as an evangelist and a skeptic. And so to be an evangelist, you want souls to convert, but you also want, instead of trying to convert thousands of people, it's easier to convert one or two people and then they'll convert. So that's how I think about it. So I hope that starts to answer that
Would you
question.
say then, kind of influential, expert, and then also people by engaged followers, would you say people who are commenting and who are, messaging you directly and things like that, those
Those are
are
great.
more
I will ask,
quality,
yeah, what I will ask anybody who's thinking about this, how much do you participate? How much
right?
do you engage with other people? How many likes do you give other folks, right? We all want everyone to like our content, but we're too busy to like everybody else's, right? Instead of just doom scrolling, like, comment, reply, ask a question, answer a question. And these are ways what you're doing on social, like the algorithm learns from every time you like something, but also the creators of content learn about you. And so if you can like and post and share and participate, you every time, it's what I call low touch connections, right? Your low touch interactivity. I do a lot of work around fundraising, and I do a whole 2 hour workshop on how to do fundraising in today's age, in the AI age. And for that, one of the things that we say to folks is that you want to be constantly, you have this low touch connection with the people you're fundraising for and with and around. So you don't want to always say, give me $10,000, right? You're much better off giving them good value content on a regular basis and then getting a few $1,000s, few $100s, even dozens of dollars. Fundraisers will tell you that with individual donors, they'd rather get $10 a month on the credit card automatic renewal than getting $100 and never hearing from you again. So same way, just think about social media in a tactical, strategic way, and you will make good progress. So let's pause here if that's okay, Vani, if that answered
Yes.
that question, and then we'll come back and circle
Sounds
around to
great.
that
That was
one.
super
And
helpful.
yeah, and please, folks, please keep posting your questions. I just noticed, I'll just show you since I mentioned my wife before, this is the Career Catapult. And even artists, this is aimed at business folks, but even artists will benefit from this. It's called the Career Catapult. Shake up the status quo and boost your professional trajectory. And whatever you do in whatever industry you're in, you'll benefit from reading her book. Since I already mentioned my dad, and I mean, my mom and my wife, I've got to mention my dad. This is his 11th book about diplomacy, and we celebrated his 80th birthday and his 11th book here in New York just a few months ago, and it was incredibly lucky that we could do something like that for and with him. All right, folks, if you just joined us, we are in the middle of our workshop on digital and social for artists, and our sponsoring organization is Arts India US. Please follow them on social, especially on Instagram, and talk to them about how you could work together and lift up all folks who are doing this wonderful Indian arts, but also all kinds of arts. So my presentation that I'm using is the ways to think about digital storytelling. And here are 3 qualities of the best communicators: confidence, transparency, generosity. And you can guess what these mean, but let me just be very clear that your confidence shows through. People like confident communicators, where you are speaking clearly, writing clearly, thinking clearly, expressing clearly, sharing clearly. That confidence makes a big part of your success on social media. So be as confident as you can because you're talking about things you know and love, right? That's why you're confident. Transparency. What are the things that we should know? Are you being paid by somebody? Do you have, when you say this is, if I started saying the better half of diplomacy is the best book on diplomacy ever written, that's fine. But unless I say it's by my mother or my cousin or whatever, I'm not being transparent. So be as transparent as you can. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be president this year of SAJA, the South Asian Journalists Association, and we've gone for radical transparency. Saja.org, please check it out. And Tara may put the email, the website address on into the chat if she has a moment. saja.org. Uh, we've said we have a gala on October 12th in New York, a conference all day. By the way, you're all welcome. You don't have to be South Asian or a journalist to come to that conference. You'll learn a lot, lots of workshops. But I've said we have 160 seats. That's all we have. And you can see how many tickets have been sold in real time when you go to the website. That's how transparent we're being. And people have been so grateful for that. There isn't like please buy tickets because we, just try to pump up the sales. No, we're just being absolutely clear. And finally, generosity. Most of us are constantly posting about us, me, look at me, I'm so great, I'm so fantastic, etc. And you are fantastic. But to be really successful, to do it right, be generous. Talk about other people in your field. Talk about other artists. Talk about other musicians, singers, dancers. Become a domain expert. Show off your expertise. That's one of the things you can do on social is show off your expertise. It works so well. So I encourage you to be generous and think about your phone, right? When Tara, would you mind just calling me? If you have my number, just calling me because I want to show them something on the phone. So Tara is going to call me if she gets a chance.
Yep,
And when
doing
you
it
get a
now.
call, I'm sorry. Yep,
Calling now.
she's doing that right now. And you can see I have, by the way, there's Tara, and I have a choice, right? I can slide to answer, right? Or I can ignore. And in the old days, there were two buttons, ignore and answer. And uh, depending on who it is, you will always answer because that person improves your day or you love talking to them. And they're very apologetic. They say, sorry to call, just wanted to, are you okay? Do you have a moment? And you'll say, sure. There are other people who you see the call and you ignore, and you even if you were free, you would say you were busy, right? So what kind of content are you creating? Ignore content or answer content? Content that people want to connect with, engage with, because it's all of these things. It's not just me, I'm so great, right? That's what we have to change about how we communicate, how we look at content. And the more you do that, the more successful you're going to be. Diversity counts in what you're doing online and how you tell stories, how you think about the mix of things you put together. The people we're talking to today are all Indian classical artists, so dancers, musicians, etc. But even within that, what is the range of um, of diversity, right? Do you have North Indian artists? Do you have South Indian artists? East Indian artists from Assam and Bengal, or is it mostly South Indian artists or mostly North Indian, right? Like that diversity matters when journalists, especially looking at your content, they look for that. I'll just share with you this incredible thing that I got to luckily be part of. My daughter really made me promise, and I showed her there are all these all male panels. You'll know this problem of panels. And I went into a panel where this whole conference, there was only me and two Edwards. It was the most amazing thing. And so I made a pledge not to speak on any all male panels and not to attend any all male panels. And from that single Facebook post came this article and this article. And here I am on TV talking about this, all of it coming for a problem that's in broad daylight. This is not about me. This is about understanding that women have been complaining about this issue for decades. And the problem is a man started talking about it and boom, people paid attention. So that's a whole other set of issues. But the idea that you can spark something when you're thinking about how you're telling your story, who's included, who's not included in what you're doing, that you can watch this video. So I'm boycotting all male panels, as you can see. And there's a wonderful website and tool called Gender Avenger, where they track conferences to make sure there are women speaking, people of color speaking, etc. So they're really cool things. Number 8, 3 attributes of the best digital projects. And by the way, just a time check, we have about 40 minutes left in this conversation. Simple, useful, delightful is what I like to say. Make your projects, your communications as simple, useful, delightful as possible. Don't overstuff it. Don't make it overcomplicated. Don't add more things. Your audience doesn't know that. And so don't feel bad if you have to take things out. The more you take out, the more successful you're going to be. This is true about digital projects and true about non-digital projects as well. Next, be an early tester and a late adopter of technology. What does that mean? That look and understand. You'll say, well, I'm an artist, I don't have time. No one has time. But see what you can test. You don't have to join all these things and sign up and start implementing all of these, but test them so you can understand them. And you all know about Google Maps Live View, which has been around now for 6, 7 years. And if you haven't been using it, now you know you must use it. It's changed your life, right? And it's just a fantastic tool that most people don't use. I'm sure everyone here is using it, but that's an example. Keep your eyes and ears open for new ideas and things that you can try out when you're doing this kind of work. Work on your AI skills because AI is changing so fast and it will affect you when you're doing your work on your own social media, your communication. So work on your AI skills for sure and work on your social skills. So let's go into a couple of, before I do that, I'm going to pause and see if we have a good question or two to jump into, Vani.
Yes. So I think this question, a few different people have posted about or said so in their survey registration, but people want some insight on how to make Indian classical content appeal to the average or non-classical listeners. This, you can imagine, is a huge problem because, you know, a lot of this can be esoteric. Artists can be really into what they're doing. And, you know, even if they pull up a little bit, how do they access those audiences that are just not used to what this content is?
Great question, and a question that everybody has. No organization, art form, subject matter of anything is happy with where they are in their content and reaching diverse audiences, right? So this is really a diversity question. How do you reach people who are not the hardcore folks who already love you, right? We talked about that digital footprint. How do you expand that? How do you diversify your audiences, get new people to watch and care about what you're doing? I had a call today with a chamber music orchestra um, that's trying to work on getting new audiences, Western classical music, obviously. So this is the kind of thing that is happening all the time around us, and everybody wants to improve it. The ballet wants to improve. One of my clients, the National Ballet of Canada, how do they increase their digital footprint, get people to go to the ballet? For people here, they have you have different audiences already built in. How do you expand that? Should you expand it? My answer would be you should expand it because you want to continue to grow and be sustainable in your business. And this is a business, by the way. I should have said this at the very beginning. A lot of artists go into the stuff I mentioned. My mom, for example, didn't care at all about the business side of her art. She did it because she loved it. Well, this is a business, unfortunately. You're fighting for attention, right? People have lots of options for their entertainment dollar. Or when Vani kindly mentioned we were together at our friend Kamini Dandapani's home for a concert. It was amazing. And we were all people who loved it and were there already. But how do you increase that? How do you make sure more people can see and understand what that is? And how do you charge people for money? Like, even if it was free, people still have other things to do. I found out that the hard way that even if you want to give away something absolutely free, people don't want it because they're just too busy. There's too much going on. And so you're constantly thinking about this, like how do you get, you don't want to lose your core audience of people who love what you do, but how do you expand that? How do you get new people? At the Met, that was the work I was brought in to do, was how do I increase new people coming and understanding what we're doing at the Met, because they want new audiences. They want young people to come to the Met. And it was something that they had to work on specifically in order to do that. And it wasn't easy for us, but that's something we focused on. So I'm going to just show you a story in the New York Times just about this, right? So here you go. You can see this here. It says so many stories to tell for the Met's digital chief. And this is a 2013 story about how and what does the Met do. And so I'm going to just grab this link here, and many of you will have, let me see if I can put a gift link. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you a gift link to this, and I want to stick it in the chat, and Vani's going to grab that, and we can use it for a future thing as well. Let's jump in here,
So would
and there's that article. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, would you say that, your point about diversity, would you say that, specifically applying that to these Indian classical performing artists who want to stay true to their art form, but still reach, lay audiences per se, would you say then to sort of address tangential topics fully? So, for example, I'm just taking one out, like, maybe some Indian classical dancers do yoga, right? And so it's sort of like, okay, let me share my yoga practice. That's a little tangential, but it's not sort of compromising their art form and how they approach it, but it's just addressing something tangential to maybe reach a greater audience.
Yeah, I thank you. That's a good example. I would say that people want to see the genuine you, and you want to be authentic. And sharing your life doesn't mean you share everything about your life, but the things that are, I wouldn't say tangential, but I would say like complementary or supplementary to your life, right? Your main vision as an artist. So you want to post those things. But what are the other things you do through that would be of interest and relevance to all the stuff that you're doing? So that's one of the things that's how I would think about that. So absolutely post your yoga work, post your, the teaching you're doing on the side that's not about the arts. Just people want to know the real person and want to know as much about you as possible. So the more well-rounded you are, the more you let people in. You've heard that term BTS, not the music group, but behind the scenes, right? People love behind the scenes. One of the things I posted at the Met was a sign that you have. So the Met, the main museum, obviously, but underground they have all these tunnels where the art is moved up and down, and they have a sign that says "Yield to the art," and I love that sign. And I just put that online, and people went crazy. You can imagine this. People loved that. That was behind the scenes at the Met, and so being telling more stories about you, more rounded out stories about you, the better and more successful you're going to be.
Do you think of a strategy, is this a poor or a good strategy, which is, if you're trying to reach these lay audiences, to explain concepts of the art form? Is there a kind of a smooth way of doing that that grabs people's attention without turning them off and maybe uncovers something that is hard for them to grasp otherwise?
Yeah, to be fair, every music form is like every art form has people who understand it and then people who don't understand it, right? Just ask anybody about contemporary art or modern art or Picasso, right? Like there are all these jokes that people make when they're looking at art and they say, well, I don't understand it, right? But the same thing can happen. We had a session here the other day. We had a salon for and for authors of a book called The Graphic History of Hip Hop. And I'd invited a lot of my friends, and many of them, lots of people came. One of them was like, I don't know anything about hip hop, but I'm going to come anyway. And because of the way the authors told the story of hip hop, he wrote me a beautiful note. This is a South Indian gentleman who has nothing to do with hip hop, said, I knew nothing about this, but I really now appreciate hip hop or the story of hip hop in a way I didn't. So that was really special. And then I had an African American woman who was here who is all about the music of the 50s and the 60s and hates hip hop. But she came because she wanted to see what are these people doing to do outreach. So it was kind of fascinating to hear those two people and seeing how even there was outreach being made. So telling stories, connecting the dots. Who, you know, if you're a fan of the Beatles, telling the stories of the Beatles in India and how they use the sitar in multiple songs, or what George Harrison did with that. Like, just think about those connections you can make. That's what's going to intrigue people. And the stories matter. If you've ever been to uh, a museum anywhere in the world and had a gallery curator or tour guide give you a tour of the gallery, they'll be really in depth because they know so much. But what people want is some of it. They don't want all of it all the time, right? So think about ways in which you can give a little bit without compromising, right? So there's a great thing I heard about journalism that applies in social media. Never underestimate underestimate the never underestimate the intelligence of your audience, but never overestimate their knowledge of what you're talking about, right? So that's that balance. If you can find, let's treat them as smart people interested in the world, but let's also make sure that we don't presume they know everything. So by the way, to the African American lady who doesn't like hip hop, she says, I don't understand what they're saying. And I bet you the South Indian gentleman didn't say that, but I bet he'll say the same thing. And what I told her was about Rap Genius. I'm sure some of you know about it, genius.com, where they annotate songs and they tell you the meaning of every rap song and other songs as well now. Genius just grew into a huge thing. So just thinking about those connections, those stories. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That kind of thing in short bites will make a difference.
That's a great point, and really beautifully explained, especially about the intelligence and the knowledge. That's a really great comparison. Just, as you were talking about transparency before, one of our audience members is talking about how it can feel sort of intimidating to be transparent. And I think a lot of people share this, even though some of these people are on stage and used to sort of performing in front of a lot of people, being transparent on social media seems like a different beast. What are some strategies that you've seen people use to overcome that?
That is not an unusual situation. I know so many people who can sing in front of Carnegie Hall and reach thousands of people, but have a really hard time even talking in a small room, right? Because what you have to kind of give of yourself in a different way. And because the other art form they've been doing for dozens of years, where here you have less control, right? In When you're performing, you're doing one to many, and when you're in a small room, the many can talk back to you, and that becomes really difficult. I've seen people paralyzed by having to perform in that smaller venue or answer questions or being put on the spot. And social media is like that. You have to share, but remember, you don't have to overshare. You don't have to share too much. Just a little bit will make a big difference. I remember when China banned Twitter 15 years ago, someone had a great headline. Oh no, now people in China won't know what I'm going to eat for lunch. And my point was, unless you're a food writer like Priya Krishnan at the New York Times, some of you know her name. She wrote Indianish, which is a great book about cooking and more. Or so you're a food writer, or you're a great chef, or you are really have adventurous food habits. I don't want to hear about your lunch. Like, occasionally, fine, but just your random lunch, I don't want to hear about it, right? So think of it the same way with your art form, your songs, your music. Like, what are you reading? What are you seeing? Whose other performance did you see? So it's not just me. I want to see the world through your eyes. I want to see the world of classical Indian dance through your eyes, so I can know what are things that'll make me smarter, what are things that'll make me happier, what are things that I don't know now, right? So just think about that, like even just what's on your bedside reading. is something that people will love and appreciate. So you don't have to, in this world of TikTok, everybody thinks you have to like do these, turn on the phone and just talk. You don't have to do that. You can have glimpses of your life. You can have fun things you're doing. Have personality. You all have personality. That's why you went into this business, into the arts, because your personality brought that out. But think about how and when and where and why and how you are putting all of that together. And then I think it'll be helpful. Unless there's a directly connected question, I do have one more set of slides I want to finish, and then we'll still have about 20 minutes. Is that okay?
That sounds great. There are a few more questions we can ask at the end.
Yeah, sure. So let's go back into presentation mode here and pulling up my slides. So I put this link in, so I hope somebody grabbed that so you have it. All right. So next is working on your social, right? So I said work on your AI and work on your social. So here are 4 things social media can do for you. It can help you find new ideas, trends, opportunities, connect with audiences in deeper ways, bring eyeballs, traffic, and attention to your work, and help you craft, create, and enhance your brands, plural, because you all have multiple brands. Even if you're one kind of dancer, you have a brand as a teacher, you have a brand as a performer, you have a brand as a student, all of those things. And so most people know these 4, but very few people think about whenever they're communicating all these 4 put together. And social media can do also terrible other things, right? Give you tech neck or FOMO or loneliness or society's crisis here. So that's something I talk a lot about and I write about in my newsletter. So again, sreenet.substack.com. I hope all of you will sign up for it. I give a lot of tips and thoughts around life and technology on that as well. So here's a thought on followers. It's not who follows you that matters. It's who follows you that matters. Like try to find engaging and influential followers and have more meaningful conversations overall. I'll show you one of my clients. This is the UN Refugee Agency, and they have 2 million followers, which is great. But their top 100 followers have 500 million followers. So that doesn't mean their 2 million followers aren't important. But what are you doing for these top 100 followers? How are you connecting with them? What are you doing? Are you engaging with them? All of that stuff. Astrophysicist, by the way, that first person there is Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's following you. What are you doing to connect with him? Are you sharing his content? Are you resharing? When someone follows you on social media, you have a kind of superpower. You can DM them, you can connect with them, share their work to bring them closer to you. There are also a couple of other things that I encourage everybody to do. The Facebook Legacy Contact, which is a way, and this was really important. My mom didn't do it, even though she sat through multiple workshops where I told everybody, do the Legacy Contact. I encourage you to do this. We had to get my cousin who works at Meta to help us turn her Facebook page into a tribute page. So please do that. And then see first on your feeds. This is a lot of different social media platforms. You can do see first. So you're seeing content of the people you want who are the first 30 people's feed that you want to see again and again. So work on that. Using Facebook Live, Instagram Live, all of these things. Here's one thing I do that's really weird. Among the many things I do that's really weird. On 8:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings, I read the Sunday New York Times out loud on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I may mention that. Anyway, there are 5 platforms. So I encourage you to try different things, play with different things. I've been doing this for 9 years because it took off. I was just learning how to do it, and it just took off. So you can play with that. When you're doing live things, you can also get interesting guests, conversations, going back and forth with interesting people. So I encourage you to do that and think about how you can do this. I did one once with Ustad Amjad Ali Khan, and the Facebook Live I did with him was so powerful, so special, without edits or anything. It was just live, and he just talked, and it was really very special. So just think about what you can do. I also think about how you can shine via non-social platforms or social platforms that you don't think are all social media. Here is a playlist from Anil Dash, who's a great person on social. He uses playlists on Spotify. You can do that, right? You're an expert on Bharatanatyam. You should have a Spotify playlist of your favorite songs on there. So just think about how you can shine by showing other things. Email still matters in a TikTok world. I said that before. The Skim has a great email newsletter. Axios has a great email newsletter. We have a business where we help organizations, companies, individuals do their newsletters. And I use my newsletter as an example of what we can do for newsletters. And then LinkedIn, this is where I start to wrap up to get to your questions. LinkedIn really matters. It's the most underappreciated of all the networks because you can get data about who's reading your content. And even if you're an artist, you think IG is the most important. Sure, but LinkedIn matters because people who book speakers or dancers or artists or whatever it is, they're using LinkedIn. So especially as Twitter has gone down the tube, LinkedIn has become more important. So you can check those out. So I have one more slide that I will do for the Q&A after the Q&A, but let's go to some questions.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good one, and I've heard this from many artists. In some ways, all of these artists being experts in their own right have, a bit of perfectionism that they're used to from their gurus, from, just themselves performing on stage for major productions. And so, how do you sort of um, one, use a different standard online, perhaps if you're trying to be transparent and you're showing journeys, but also how do you know when to share a work of art, right? It's you know, perhaps it's not done, but how do you kind of figure out when is the right time to share some of it on social media?
Are you seeing these balloons, by the way?
I am. Is that you?
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, this is just a react button.
Oh.
These things keep changing. So here's another thing that, yeah, so that's on the side. So I guess the balloons the balloons come out at night, and here's a rocket going up for no reason. Okay. So this idea of perfection versus imperfection is the wrong construct. You really have to think about social media as a different way of communicating. So the way I compare it to is giving birth versus software development. What is giving birth, right? You have 9 months, often a little less, maybe a little more, of baking this human being is being baked and baked and baked in this perfect or uh or somebody with issues comes out, but nobody sees anything till that ninth month is over, right? And there's this you're unleashed into the world, right? That's giving birth. Instead, think of your work online like software development, the alpha version, the beta version, 0.5 version, version 1, version 2. It's something that's living and will constantly improve and evolve. So don't feel the pressure of having to do everything to be perfect, because perfect, the expression, perfect can be the enemy of good. The good is often good enough for social. And I'm not saying lower your standards. I'm saying post more often so that the amount of energy and worry that's invested in this one interview that you're doing, this one uh, piece of software, a piece of art that you're sharing is just too much, because it's not possible for anybody to live up to that kind of pressure. Do it more often, and then you'll find that you'll learn something every time, and be a student of social media. Post something, learn something. Post something else, learn something else. And that way you'll find that you will improve what you're doing, and do it when the stakes are low. Don't wait for your big performance to post in the slow cadence, uh post, and then when you need something, then really post, right? If you just come in and just start demanding things of people and demanding attention, it doesn't work. You've been on the sidewalks of New York, Vani, and so many of your viewers, where there are people who are trying to get you to sign something, Greenpeace or Jehovah's Witnesses or something. They just want your attention, and they just kind of almost grab you by their attention, right? And I need you to do something right now. I'm busy. I don't have time. All of those things. So don't be that kind of person. Post on a regular cadence and just post and post and post. And then that all adds up to what you need to do and where you need to be in your success of what you're doing. So that's how I would think about it. We have another 15 minutes. Happy to answer as many questions. Vani, why don't you come back on camera and then we can talk to each other. And I'm going to spotlight you as well. So here we go.
That's a great point on the perfectionism and kind of all the angst that I think some of us feel when we're posting, especially about work that's so personal and dear to us and our careers. The other thing is, I think there's some degree of expectation by artists to have their feeds look artistic too. And so, how important is that aspect of, it being this clean, color coded or branded, feed versus just getting stuff out there?
Yeah, I mean, you know what my answer is going to be. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's just do it, right?
Right.
It could be perfect, but in that pursuit of that you're already pursuing perfection in your art. You're pursuing perfection in your learning, right? In your teaching, you're doing all that. That's great. But here, let's lower the temperature. I'm not saying lower your standards. I'm saying lower the temperature a little bit by having some fun, having bringing things together, trying them in different places. Your grid on IG should look good. It should reflect who you are, but it doesn't have to be perfect every time, right? So those experiments are what I've been talking about.
Are there any particular strategies you would say some of these artists could use in connecting with either, high stakes people like presenting organizations or people who are really in the know over social media or just other artists? How do you approach them, or how do you like soft connect with them before kind of sending them an ask for something? Or how do you introduce yourself? What
Yes,
is kind of
great question.
etiquette?
So I have this saying, don't be an ask on social media. And you may not have heard the K, but the K was there. Don't be an ask on social media. Somebody in Germany, when I did this once, tweeted, Sree says, don't be an ass on social media. It's true. Do not be an ass on social media, but that's not what I said. Don't be an ask, meaning, again, think of your phone, right? Are you an answer person or an ignore person? When Vani calls me, I answer her call because she's going to teach me something. She's going to help me. She's going to ask how my day is. She's going to be a good experience versus my friend so and so, who every time he calls, he just like unloads on me without even asking, how's my day? What's happening in my life, right? Like, just be that kind of person. And so, what I mean by don't be an ask is don't be the first. Let's say you're cultivating me. I'm the arts editor of the the Philadelphia Inquirer. And that's a good example because she happens to be South Asian and it's fantastic. So I'm going to show you her IG. And what I want you to do is not think of like, how am I going to immediately email her saying, come cover me? I'm so great, right? That's not what you want. So what you can do is think about how is it that someone like her can get to know you? Post interesting content. When you see her content, like it. When she asks, hey, are there good recommendations for pizza in New York? Well, that's not my thing, but I know pizza. I'm going to tell her, right? Like, she's a person, and make sure that you are able to connect with her. So the first time she hears from you is not an ask, is not a request, is not begging for something. Instead, she's like, oh, you're actually helping her. That's pretty cool, right? And she'll say, oh, I wonder who this is. Oh, she's a dancer. I'm going to file her name away for another time, right? That's the kind of thing I want you to do. That's how I want you to think about how you're doing your social media. Does that make sense? So she
That's a
has,
great point. Yeah.
yeah, she
You're kind
has,
of cultivating a relationship, really,
yes, it's
before.
about
I mean, it's
relationship.
not that
Yep,
different than approaching people live.
100%. So we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna look at her. I've not told her we're doing this. Here is her account. And here's the chat, and I'm going to put her address in the chat. I want you all to follow her and see what she's posting, learn about her. I mean, don't do this, by the way, if you live in San Diego and you're never going to come to the Northeast. But she lives in New York. She works for the Philadelphia Park is the arts and entertainment editor. There's somebody you want to cultivate and get to know. What is she doing? She's doing a Q&A on September 8th. Let's say it was October 8th. I would just put it on my story and tag her. And she's like, wow, I don't know who this person is. She's doing me a favor, right? Like you're building these little chits with people. Those are what life is about. Relationships are not like, here I am now. You're lucky that I'm talking to you, right? Like look at her feed. How many pictures are of her, right? Very few. She's an artist, so she's talking about all the things she's doing, but you can see she's artistic in what she's doing, but she's not an artist necessarily. I mean, I don't know enough about her work, but it'd be funny if she ever watches this video. But I'd love to see all of you follow her right now and just see the great work she's doing. And then as an experiment, like, can you connect with her? As a seed, can I reach out to her? What do I reach out to her about? What can I talk to her about? Right? And that's how I would look at that, if that makes sense. All right, we have about 10 minutes.
Um, I think I guess a corollary to that question that came up is just connecting with other artists. Is that really just following them, or is there something more that you can do? And how does it feel genuine if you're just sort of, if everyone's kind of like commenting, "Oh, great job," and
Don't
how
do
does
that. Doesn't have to be a great job. Say specifically what you liked about something. Uh, Say I saw you do this here, and I wish my friend Jen had come, and then tag Jen, and so then Jen sees that, right? Are you a giver, right? Like that's maybe it comes down to this. Are you a generous person who wants to just bring people together, connect your friends, or it's like I'm so special and precious that I only want to talk about me, right? And Vani, you're not like that. Most people are not like that, but we know people like that. And sure, once you've hit a certain level, good luck, you can do whatever you want. But we're talking about most people, right? We're in it for the art. We didn't like one of the things I tell people about social media, and I say to the same thing. I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs and startups that if you aren't willing to do this, whatever this is, the passion project, the side project, the startup, the hustle, if you're not willing to do it for no audience and no money, then you'll never be able to do it for all the audience and all the money in the world. Because I've seen that firsthand. Having been a teacher for 30 years, I've seen who's been successful, who's been a failure, who has done this well, who hasn't. And the people who give the most get the most. The people who give away everything. There are people, of course, who get screwed, who had chances, that they missed. All of that happens. That's certainly true. But for the most part, if I did what they call a longitudinal study of if I map this with people in my life, the people I want to hang out with are those people who are givers, who are friendly, who are generous. I don't mean money, generous with their time, generous with their contacts, with their networks. Those are the people who are going to succeed in this very crowded, very busy world. That all goes back to that first thing we talked about, attention and how to get it. So quick questions, quick answers. Let's go. And then, by the way, we can do one more thing. At the end, I will stop the recording and then we can have everyone come on camera. And if there are things they didn't want to ask when it's being recorded, they can ask. Of course, you should never ask something in front of 10 other people. But at least it's not going on YouTube necessarily. It may still go on YouTube. You never know who's recording, but something to think about. So if that's useful, Vani, we can do that for a couple of minutes as
Yeah,
well.
we can definitely offer that and see if anyone wants to take that on. I think I've done a last call for questions. You've been so wonderful in giving us some specific things to pursue in social media, specifically with regards to Indian classical performing arts. So I think everyone seems satisfied. So you know,
Uh,
I know that you'll give us this link. This presentation's recorded.
Sure.
We will make sure to email it to everyone and post it on our social and website. And we want to make this knowledge known to as many people as possible.
Sure. So I'm going to do the slide and I'm going to turn off the camera. And if anybody wants to come on camera and
Okay.
ask questions, they can. This is what I call my social media success formula. Think about the value of what you're posting. Is it helpful, useful, timely, informative, relevant, practical, actionable? By the way, if you're a lawyer, actionable doesn't mean sue somebody. It means can people take action? Are you authentic, generous, credible, brief, entertaining, fun, and occasionally funny? But somebody looked at this and said, this is a media success formula. But I've gone one step further, and I think this is a life success formula. Like these are the people, the best people you love in your life are people who are some version of this. And they're not all of this all of the time, and you don't need to be all of this all of the time, but you need to be some of this some of the time in order to be successful. So we're going to now give everybody a relive the last 90 minutes of their lives by just going back in time to the front of the screen. You are, of course, going to get the URL. But there it is on the screen if you want to grab it, or there's a QR code if you want to grab it. And you can do that. And I want to thank Vani for putting this together and for all of you who are watching live or later. Really appreciate you and look forward to just a 2 or 3 minutes with people who want to share something, vent something, talk something. So I'm going to stop my screen. I'm going to stop the recording.